Your top 4 favorite movies are my top 4 favorite movies. They're just in a different order.
Really?
Mm-hmm. If I Was Afraid, Poor Things, The Boy and the Heron, and Past Lives are my 4 top favorite movies.
Maybe,
How is that?
Maybe your taste is rubbing off.
On you?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think I would have seen Past Lives on my own, to be honest.
Well, there you have it, folks. My top 4 movies of the year. Making lists has always kind of felt like a futile effort. How do you compare the art of one filmmaker versus another, versus another, versus another? So don't think of this as a best of the year list. Think of this as a Wallace's favorite movies and movie recommendations list. I am always asked for recommendations by my friends because I make movies and I see a lot of them. And so here this is. The order is relatively random. I have lots of things to say about these movies, but I'm going to keep it brief just so that you have this list handy. This year was an incredible one for filmmaking and for film. We had the return of so many wonderful talents. We got a new movie from Serra, Polley, Hayao Miyazaki, Scorsese, even William Friedkin got a surprise movie that went straight to streaming but is worth seeing anyway. So here, without further ado, is my favorite movies of 2023. Presented in alphabetical order from number 30 to number 21, 20 Days in Mariupol, a documentary by Mstyslav Chernov that aired on PBS. Christian Petzold's Afire, Rebirth by Laura Moss, William Friedkin's The Caine Mutiny Court-Marshal, Alexander Payne's The Holdovers, John Wick Chapter 4 by Chad Stahelski, Paul Schrader's new one, Master Gardener, Todd Haynes' May-December, Albert Serra's Pacifiction, and You Hurt My Feelings by Nicole Holofcener. At number 20 is Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, a contemplative look at the anguish of the Osage Nation, which in the 1920s became the subject of what was called the Reign of Terror, as white settlers murdered members of this indigenous tribe who had suddenly become wealthy due to the oil found on their land. The placement of my number 19 film is intentional. A.V. Rockwell's 1001 reminds me a great deal of early Scorsese in that it's a love letter to mothers and children and street hustlers in New York City. It's epic in scope but intimate in emotion. Morrisa Maltz, The Unknown Country is one of the great unsung films of 2023. It's a road movie that combines elements of documentary and fictional feature filmmaking, and it also features a fantastic performance by Lily Gladstone, who is also the lead of Killers of the Flower Moon. I highly recommend it. I happened into Kokomo City by accident. I'd actually gone to my local art house theater, shout out Midtown Cinema, to see something else and unfortunately hadn't checked the show times. Instead, I caught this wonderful gem of a documentary that deals with the lives and experiences of transgender prostitutes in a way that is not maudlin. It treats these individuals with dignity and shares their stories without delving into the kind of easy emotions that we come to expect and the cliches that we see in so many other depictions. It's a wonderful breath of fresh air. Japanese director Hirokazu Kore-eda brings his standard poignancy, sensitivity, and even humor to this drama about human trafficking. At times, the film veers into something of a crime caper, but it never loses sight of the beating human heart at its center. I've loved the work of Canadian director Serra Polley since her debut feature Away From Her. Despite the intense subject matter of a group of women from an isolated religious colony dealing with sexual violence within their community, women talking never feels melodramatic or exploitative. Instead, Polley deals clear-eyed with the problems in front of these women and treats each of their points of view with respect and grace. It feels like there's very little I could say about Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer that hasn't already been said. I was simply in awe of the filmmaking on display here, particularly the Trinity test sequence. That said, ultimately Oppenheimer is a bit conventional for my taste, as it follows the life and ultimately the regrets of its title character. Once again, David Fincher does not disappoint with his latest, the Netflix film The Killer, which for my money features among the best action sequences this side of John Wick Chapter 4. He also subverts many of the tropes of the hitman genre, giving us a lead character who says he's competent, but really everything we see indicates that this is not a good hitman. R.M.N., the latest film by Romanian filmmaker Cristian Mangiu, is the slowest of slow burns, but it rewards an attentive viewer. R.M.N. is one of the best examinations of xenophobia I've seen in any media, and in classic form, the filmmaker does not hold his punches. Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy is what I like to call a warm bath film. Ryusuke Hamaguchi brings us a triptych of carefully observed short stories about regret, seduction, memory, and human connection, whose themes only deepen upon reflection. I went into They Clone Tyrone without any expectations, and had a blast. Joel Taylor's feature directorial debut reminded me of the paranoid thrillers of the 1970s. Think Stepford Wives. In the best possible way, the director described his film as a bootleg Scooby-Doo, which is an apt description but ignores just how deeply this story delves. Godland is a staggeringly beautiful film about a Christian priest who travels to Iceland in the 19th century with a bulky wet plate camera in tow. The protagonist's objective is to shine a light on uncharted territories, but it's rooted in the kind of arrogance familiar to any fan of Werner Herzog. Godland is bold, tragic, and often funny. If you were forced to publicly account for the things you say to a spouse, could you? That's just one of many provocative questions Justine Triet raises in Anatomy of a Fall, a courtroom drama that delves into the complexities of relationships, mental health, and what it means to be responsible. The ending of Colum Bayreid's The Quiet Girl absolutely gutted me. It's a quiet film following a 9-year-old girl from a troubled family as she escapes for one summer at the farm of her distant cousins. Anyone who grew up in a dysfunctional home will feel this story in their bones. Miriam Touzani's The Blue Caftan is a film of delicate beauty and abiding empathy. On its face, this is a familiar story of forbidden love in a conservative society, but Touzani is too good a storyteller to settle for such cliches. Seek this film out. It is a must-see. Barbie doesn't really need my endorsement. Greta Gerwig did something incredible, sneaking an armload of all-caps big ideas into what could have been just another intellectual property cash grab. Not all of the ideas feel as fleshed out as they could be, but few films inspired as much conversation as this one did in my circles. I feel a certain kinship with Greta, and I don't want to lose her to the world of blockbuster cinema. Her next project is a Chronicles of Narnia reboot, but I will follow her down whatever IP rabbit hole she finds herself in, so long as it's as brainy, funny, and artfully made as Barbie. Beau is Afraid is a lot. I did not know what to expect going into Ari Aster's latest, but I could not have anticipated the primal scream that he gave us. I mulled this film over in my head, letting its big themes and its cadre of unhinged performances steep for months. On the other side, I'm not sure that Beau is Afraid is that complicated. Spoiler alert, Joaquin Phoenix's protagonist is a deeply anxious man trying to self-soothe, and Astor successfully traps his audience in Beau's head, for better and for worse. Celine Song's Past Lives does not feel like the work of a first-time director. From the first shot of three people being observed from the other end of a bar, I knew I was in the hands of a confident storyteller. Song tells a very specific story of a Korean-American woman reuniting with a childhood friend who at one time felt like something more that is universally resonant. Hayao Miyazaki is back! The Boy and the Heron is everything I could have hoped for from this master filmmaker. A story of growing up and the madness of grief that's full of delightful images, performances, and ideas. Poor Things is just the kind of coming-of-age story you'd expect from Yorgos Lanthimos, the Greek director with a keen ear for dialogue and a penchant for dark humor. This film bears a lot of his trademarks, starting with an absurd Frankenstein-inspired premise involving a reanimated corpse, played by Emma Stone, who has to relearn literally everything. Along the way, Lanthimos crafted a deeply touching story about what it means to grow up, to learn, and to choose one's own path through the world.
Godland, They Clone Tyrone, Wheel of Fortune, and Fantasy, R.M.N, The Killer, I haven't seen half of these, Oppenheimer, Women Talking, Broker, KOKOMO City, The Unknown Country, 1001, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Brooker, I hardly knew her.
Is that thing working now?